Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last session of what has been a fantastic India Energy Week. The topic we have is quite a mouthful, but what we're going to do is do three things. The first one, what we'll do is we'll talk about the imperative, the climate change imperative. So we'll acknowledge why that is important. The second thing that we want to do then is how the energy transition is going to be critical for us to resolve that. And the third thing then we'll talk about is the role that the startups can play. We've had a lot of benefits that startups have delivered to the country. We've had the IT and digital revolution. We've had the e-commerce. We now have the quick commerce. We expect that the startup ecosystem will play that role in this area as well. So I think that is the intention. We'll talk about these three things. We have a very preeminent panel with us today. On my left, I have Shoaib. Shoaib leads and is the founder of what is the first energy transition fund exclusively focused on energy transition, trying to accelerate the journey of India towards achieving the net zero goals. So that's Shoaib. Next to him is Shailesh. Shailesh used to do tech investing till 8 to 10 years back, and then he pivoted exclusively towards climate tech investing, and he did it in a massive way. So he has a campaign called Go Massive. There are three companies that he runs under that umbrella, and the intention is to go massive on energy transition and climate tech. Next to him is Arpit. Arpit comes from conventional venture capital background, but now he's focusing and pivoting towards climate tech as well. And then lastly, we have Mike. Mike joins us from Guyana, the new hot destination from an energy landscape. He's trying to make sure that all lessons that are there to be learned do get learned, right? So I think that's the panel we have. So let me just start off by laying the background, right? So we spoke about the fact that we'll acknowledge the climate imperative. India is among the top 10 countries that are going to be impacted by climate change. And if you were to now look at what's going on, we see and understand that we're going into an unpredictable zone of climate crisis, right? So that is what we acknowledge, right? And from that standpoint, we've taken our Panchamrit pledge. We've said that we will commit to that. We will get to our net zero journey by 2070, get to 500 gigawatt. So I think that is an energy transition imperative. I think the third point is the startup ecosystem. I did not know this, but we have 3,300 startups focused on the climate tech, which is humongous, right? But that also still is narrow because since the time in the last 10 years, COP goals were taken up in Paris Agreement, the world has seen $100 billion for investment towards climate tech, and India has only gotten 2% of that. So while we have 3,300 startups, not enough is happening right now, right? So from that standpoint, I just, maybe Arpit come to you because you pivoted, so you're seeing an opportunity. We've seen that happen in the world as well. That $100 billion of investment has created $180 billion of valuation, not in India yet. We still have yet to see our first unicorn. So, from your standpoint, how are you seeing climate investment? Are there some areas that are more ahead of the others? How do you view the sectoral advancements in that sense?
Yeah, thank you, Vivek, and thank you, Energy Week, for having us. Not pivoted really, Vivek. One of the first, which is going to be unicorn, not unicorn yet, from India in climate tech would be Carbon Clean, which is already $650 million for the last round. We invested in the company in 2011. So we have been at it for a long time. The fact, of course, remains that the opportunity has expanded dramatically with electric vehicles becoming central stage. Today, Bloom portfolio has some of the leading companies in various verticals. There is a mobility company called Yulu. There is a swapping company called Battery Smart. There is a OEM called Euler Motors. And there is Vecmocon and Electric Pay 2. And there are multiple other companies. So we have been at it for a while. The important thing to understand is that whether you believe in climate change or not, whether you believe capital should have a motive or a goal or not, you definitely do see opportunity in the fact that consumers and businesses are making a choice. And this choice will result in money going towards climate tech or climate sensitive or climate neutral solutions, including electric vehicles. And therefore, there will be a lot more investment coming into this. We have a company called Arum, which is into solar. We have a company called Bamboo, which is into sustainable packaging. So it is a whole wide range of things which is happening. The one other thing that you notice is that climate tech is also very research intensive.
Yeah.
So a lot of these companies will tend to be more deep tech oriented than not. And only after they become somewhat scaled up, you will then see them raising a lot more money. Hence, the amount of money that you're talking about is a smaller amount because not enough companies have scaled up as yet. It's a matter of time. It will eventually get there. But we will see significant returns from these because there is a clear need, there is a clear focus, and both capital and people, consumers and businesses are voting in that favor.
No, sure. Thanks for sharing that. So what you're saying is it's a bit more widespread.
It is quite widespread.
Trend.
Yes.
You mentioned EV and battery quite a few times. So there is that advancement that you see in that regard as well.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think and it's interesting because all these startups in the venture capital from 0 to 1 have focused on fast return kind of profiles, and digital startups tend to be in that space. Shailesh, you pivoted from that space into this, right? And this tends to be larger investment, longer gestation period as well. So how has this pivot been? What are the unique things that you require for being able to make this happen?
Thanks, thanks Vivek, and thanks everybody for surviving us in the last panel. So, see, I don't think there's a fundamental difference between what you call climate tech and consumer tech. So I see this scenario as it was in 2006. So when we started investing in consumer tech way back in 2006, like Redbus and all, it was similar, right? Redbus was doing 1 ticket a week that time, right? And when we sold, it was doing some 100,000 tickets a day. And I remember going to LPs and they saying, oh, $10 ticket, how will you make money, right? What, are you a bozo to invest in a company like that? So in a VC world, generally people think fast return, but generally fast return happens 10 years, right? It's a standard. So 10 to 12 years average holding period of a VC investor in India, I think globally also is around 10 to 12 years. And I think climate is similar. The issue is whether the company can scale, and the good part is the company is scaling very, very fast. We see companies like Blue Smart jumping some 100x, right? Sophia is an investor there. So we are seeing a lot of revenues, and when those things happen, a lot of secondary opportunities happen. Sure. And a lot of investors are able to get out if they want to get out. We have investment in a company like Beko, have investment like company Solar Square. They have grown tremendously in the last 5 years, right? 100x out revenue growth. So there is a, so I'm saying the momentum is similar. Okay. And I think, so VC would always move from phase to phase. And I think this phase, this next 20 years are going to be driven by climate tech, which is fundamentally deep tech and kind of 5th generation of industrialization, because you need new technologies for your housing, transportation, food, everything else. Sure. So I don't see much difference from a traditional VC model.
So I think, Arpit mentioned it's a very secular trend. You mentioned that it is patient capital. It is no different from a gestation period as the other areas.
I think the biggest disservice climate VCs do or climate startups do, they say, oh, we are impact. So that means people think it's more of a grant, right? I think they themselves are mis-selling themselves. Because A, they're generating revenue, B, they're generating returns. So I think if you see the IRR of a climate tech fund versus a consumer tech, I think it will be at par.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. So you think that we're just catching the next big trend that is there, and that aligns with how you would have viewed it classically. It's a new area of investment.
Correct.
And sure, you've kind of seen that opportunity because you claim you're the first transition-oriented fund. You call your fund Transition VC as well. Do you agree that it is similar to what it was in the other areas that you were investing in? Are there differences in financial modeling that you're doing, more de-risking that you're doing? Anything to that aspect, or I think you agree with Shailesh that it is kind of part of the same game in a different area though?
I think again, if you look at like investing is investing. So as a fund also, I mean when we did the math and when we did the market sizing, right, we're very clear that there's a huge opportunity there. I mean, in fact, I would add to Shailesh that also the returns what you can expect. So this energy transition is one of the few sectors which will grow tremendously. By 2030, I think we clearly see a opportunity of close to $250 billion worth of opportunity there. And out of that, startups, and especially on the technology side, if they can work well, so 15-20% of the opportunity can be taken by startups. Especially that's the technology thing which is there. I mean, if you look at on a scale of 1 to 100, so, and if you classify technologies, right, there are only 30% of the technologies which are available which are required for decarbonization, and remaining 30% are at a very nascent stage, even I would say very early stage, and the rest 40% of the technologies need to be developed.
Sure.
So there's a huge play there. So if you have to decarbonize our economy, if you have to, from an energy security perspective and also from a government policy, if you see that this is one of the hot sectors, it's just not impact oriented, but also a huge amount of money can be made. So that's also a reason why we decided, okay, this is a huge sector, we can spend our next 2 decades of our life, because we are just getting into fun and getting into saying we are just doing energy transition. First, you should have that weight and also breadth to play in. So I would say, this will be the fastest growing sector, and also in terms of unicorns turning out, there will be huge number of unicorns which will be coming out. Like, I mean, you have seen examples of Ola, Ather, and bunch of other folks going for an IPO. So we see huge potential. From our portfolio itself, we see clearly 5 to 6 companies in the next 3-4 years reaching to a stage where they will be valued at $1 billion. So there will be at least 1,000-1,500 crore kind of a revenue what they will be making. So we see a huge potential, lot of tailwinds, lot of policy support, and also there is this genuine sense of among the entrepreneurs. Also they see this as an opportunity, but also there is a genuine positive sense they would want to do something for the climate, betterment of the climate. So all things are coming in. So it's the capital, it's the policy, it's the startups. So these are all coming in and getting into a similar direction gives that sector an edge. So that's why we are very bullish that this sector will throw up huge number of unicorns, a lot of money can be made. At the same time, impact and decarbonization
the outcome is good for the climate as well.
Absolutely.
No, that is very energizing, because I would have thought this is, to the point, Shailesh, you said as well, that people are misselling themselves. Maybe because we're saying climate, it just means lower returns, but that's not the case. All of you are very bullish that they're going to be unicorns. So I think I did not have that sense coming in that sense. So Mike, you are a global citizen, and you looking to learn from what is happening in India from a climate tech and a startup standpoint, but you also have learnings from elsewhere, and you're trying to take that to Guyana. So any reflections on what do you want to take from India, and what do you think India can learn from what else is happening on climate tech elsewhere?
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. And greetings from the 6 million persons of Indian origin that calls Latin America and the Caribbean home. I'm glad you refer to me as a global citizen, because my ancestors left India in 1858 after the uprising in Meerut. My uncle came back, my grandfather came back in the 40s and joined Subhash Chandra Bose. In the 60s, my uncle came back as the Commonwealth Secretary General. Well, it's Foreign Minister in the 70s as the Commonwealth Secretary General. He was the Foreign Minister of Guyana and instrumental in Indira Gandhi's first visit to Guyana in 1968. I was a bacha then. There's a picture of her holding me, but I come of age and I met Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma when he visited in 1988. Guyana has a lot of linkages culturally with 2 states in India, primarily the state of Bihar and the state of Uttar Pradesh, and I will throw in Uttarakhand and Jharkhand for good measure. In my case, my ancestors came from Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior and Jabalpur, and from Multan and Jalandhar in erstwhile British India in the Punjab. I was smart enough, though, to marry a girl of South Indian blood, a Tamil girl whose roots came from the state of Kerala. So Guyana was home to a multitude of people that came from India, Africa, name it. We're a melting pot. But Indians constitute about 60% of the total population. And I need not remind you of Chandar Paul and Sarwan and all these great cricketers. They all have their roots in UP and Bihar. And I'm probably the only Guyanese that you've met that does not play cricket. I wouldn't attempt even to stand up against a bowler like the best you've got in India. We were producing our sugarcane and rice and our vegetables and gold and manganese comfortably going along our business until 2050.
Yes.
When suddenly, out of the blue, we are told, you know what? You have lots of oil and gas. We say, Hare, oil and gas? We know nothing about that. We know about coconut oil because we produce it just like Kerala. Gas, we know we have cow dung here, lots of cow dung, and we have lots of things we burn, coal, whatever. But gas, well, we don't know anything. Well, I tell you, not having knowledge is a sin.
Yeah.
Because had we been wiser then than we are today, Exxon would not have pulled the fast one on us. So what Guyana is doing today, we are happy. I can tell you, we have estimated reserves of at least 100 billion barrels of oil and a large amount of gas. Certifiable reserves, you are 25 billion. And Exxon alone has invested about 20 billion year to date. We are producing, we have well, let me tell you, our surface water, the ocean floor, is about 6,000 feet. So this is not shallow block. You can't use semi-subs, you can't use jackups. It wouldn't reach the ocean floor. So only FPSOs. So there are only a handful of companies in the world with these deep pockets. So Exxon, and I tell you, when they say timing is everything, Shell was in partnership with Exxon. And just before they were going to drill the last 2 wells, Shell said, look, we're throwing in the towel, we're leaving. Yeah. We got to cut our losses. And that's why they say it's not over, no disrespect intended. It's not over until the fat lady sings.
Yes.
But Shell walked away. And the last 2 wells, Exxon said, we are towards the point of diminished return. We're going to drill. The last well should have been the last well, the second became the second to last. And when they drilled and they look at the 3D, they say, oh my gosh, what have we found here? Massive veins, a condensate, and we kept, it's like how you beat us in 83. Yeah. In that cricket match, how you took down the West Indies with that team, Sachin Tendulkar, Kapil Dev, Sunil Gavaskar. That was like the run rate.
No, I would love to keep on
of
with that
Exxon.
story.
They started finding like every month large amounts of oil and gas. And we're at the point, and I say this unabashedly, India is the global epicenter of transformation and innovation. Do not be mistaken. The next Google, the next Microsoft, you can quote me, is not going to come from Silicon Valley. It's going to come from Mother India.
Yeah.
You have the GAN, you have democracy, demography, and demand. Yeah. And look at the McKinsey study that came up more than 15 years ago, where Indians are today. Guyana is your son, it's your daughter, it's your child. Yes. So we want to offer India energy security, and we want to benefit from that GAN.
So I think you have a $100 billion startup in the conventional energy space.
Sovereign wealth fund.
Yes. So I think thanks for sharing that. And I think it is investment all around. And yes. I think we've acknowledged that this is a great momentum that we are seeing right now. But Arpit, coming back, are there any gaps in climate financing that you see from where we are at right now? Is the fundraising different? Is the fund deployment different?
Definitely very different. So most things in climate tech tend to be capex oriented. Therefore, there's a lot of capital loaded upfront. Venture capital model in a traditional sense is probably not oriented towards it. We can do SaaS businesses, consumer internet businesses, fintech businesses even quite well. But here we are talking about setting up factories, laying lines, making manufacturing plants to be able to reach some scale. As a consequence, model has to evolve in the sense that we should be able to support a lot more debt financing. We should be able to do a lot more upfront financing. The model in the sense that can the various investors put together a consortium and do things together. It's important. That is one piece which is definitely missing, and more has to come. Second is very early stage innovation is absolutely a challenge. You will see that this is eventually, as I was saying earlier, it is eventually an innovation game. But innovation is still long drawn, 4-5 years of time. A lot of philanthropic capital is the only one which fits there, which is definitely a gap at this point of time. The good thing is that at least on the later stages where you're talking about solar, wind, oil and gas and so on, there's a lot of investment. People are talking about trillions of dollars. COP29 just happened. That is not going to solve the problem, because the problem is actually a long drawn problem. If you are asking for people to make the switch, they are not going to make the switch if it's economically harder for them to switch. They will only switch it when new tech comes in, and that requires time and patience. So it is incumbent on us as venture capitalists on this panel to be able to find ways to support it, fit it somehow inside our model, and to make it work. Definitely the odds are definitely in our favor. We will definitely make a lot of money, but it will take some time.
So you think it's a portfolio of sorts. There is some which is very early stage, very early tech that will have a longer gestation.
Yes.
There are proven business models commercialized already, and that will allow you.
But that will not work for the venture capital business because they are very large scale.
Sure.
Right. So for us to be able to make it work, some evolution has to happen.
So and that's more a lot to do with financial modeling, but also what are the new sources that you tap
different
into
kind
as
of
well.
financing also.
And you mentioned about collaboration on finding that way.
Yes.
So that's very interesting to note. And Shailesh, coming to that part, that there is collaboration that will be needed. There'll be new models that will need to be evolved. There'll be philanthropic capital that will need to come in. Do you need any policy incentives as well for making this happen? We always go to that as the the most often port of call. Give me the policy. This seems to have a lot of stops. The PM Kusum Yojana, whatever you have, right? So what else would you need?
Taking what his argument is making. See, I think in a classical SaaS model, you got two kids in a basement, they write some code and they start, right? And you get traction and you're on. Even a D2C brand, you don't need much money to get traction. But here you need 3 years lab, everything else. So, and VCs do not come at TRL 1, the market readiness. The VCs come at TRL 7. So we need somebody to fund that TRL 1 to TRL 7 journey, and I don't think that can come from risk capital. That cannot come from debt. I think a lot of scope and a lot of opportunities there for the grants. I think that part is missing. Unfortunately, in India, the grant making is very, very restricted, right? For profit, non-profit, this, that, everything else. So I think that regime has to loosen up. So we need to bring out what you call corporate structures away from the grant, away from FCRA, and we have to create this structure, because I think I'll tell you what picking from Dr. Mika Singh is that India, especially the global south. So India is a country, alone country in the world, which has a what you call spine of Silicon Valley and problem of Madagascar. Right. So we get it. Like, say, people in Silicon Valley don't get it, air pollution, right? But people here, the engineers here know what exactly it is. And that's why you need capital to come in, and you have to enable a lot of grant capital to come in. Otherwise, we see the risk capital by the time they come is already dead, right? So I think that's what policy has to work. And we are seeing favorable policy like PM Kusum and all are doing great. FAM2 has done a very good job. So I think this is the way the policy has to come.
And you see enough action. You said some, but you think more.
I think grant side is not happening. See, the problem here is policy is good, subsidy is not. Because subsidy damages the market. So I think that way FAM2 has, in my view, FAM2 was not a great option because it distorted the market. Because subsidies delay the market. I don't think that we are expecting a startup or VCs, we want subsidies. We don't. We are looking very stable, but a favorable policy so that it allows the private capital to come in.
So the returns are good, but there is a startup that is needed just from a grant standpoint to make the models work.
Correct.
If I can add to that, so the complete energy domain, if you look at energy sector, right, it's very difficult to say the complete energy or the climate tech is in one direction. So there are a lot of parts to it. If you look at solar and renewable, they're at a stage where it's more of a PE or a huge capital game. If you look at electric mobility, right, again, it is at a stage where the innovation is not happening on the OEM level, but a lot of innovation is happening at the subcomponent or the subsystems level. Similarly, industrial decarbonization, there are a lot of systems which have been put into place, a lot of technology which have been developed. So within that energy domain also, different subsectors are at a different evolution life cycle within themselves. So I would say, so if you look at hydrogen, right, the problem with hydrogen, a lot of equipment which goes in production, unfortunately, there aren't enough number of good technology companies here in India. That's why we had to look outside of India and bring them into India, and we're setting them help manufacturing. So all different sectors require different
Interventions, yeah.
interventions, and I think government has done a fairly great job, especially looking at, like, for example, NHM, National Green Hydrogen Mission, which is trying to help them on the production side, on the generation side, and also trying to create some bit of demand. So overall, I think we are one of the best countries to see policy moving in the right direction. There's policy there. Again, on the electric mobility side, we have done very good. There is some carbon policy which is about to come, and a lot of enthusiasm is there. So I would say government is doing its job in terms of creating those right environment and policies. Now it's the private capital and the venture capitals to find right models and right stages where they would want to invest and want to do some smart work there.
No, sure, and I recognize that as well. But one other thing that I wanted to pick with you also was that Arpit mentioned there is deep tech investment that will be needed. These tend to be very early stage, and going from the investment to commercialization is the value of death, right? Yeah. Is it very different, this value of death, when it comes to climate tech versus other sectors, and any other intervention that will be needed to make it at least at par with the other sectors that need that investment?
So it's the same almost. Like, I mean, if you talk about deep tech, right? I mean, its value of death mostly happens at the product level itself. So it takes at least on an average like 5 to 6 years in just building the product or completing the product. So also I would say as an India we need to choose. Like, I mean, in my opinion, we should as a country we should focus more on engineering startups, because the deep tech for me is more on foundational sciences, which US, UK, and to an extent China, they're doing great. So there is also a huge ample amount of opportunity. Just take those foundational sciences and build application engineering on top of it, and then bring the products where your time to market actually shrinks by at least a couple of years. And that is where the opportunity is. And maybe 5 years, 7 years down the line, when the government focus more on R&D increases within these segments, is where I think deep tech opportunities will come out. But now, if you ask me, the opportunity is more on application engineering, building those systems, building on top of your foundational sciences. So there, you can at least eliminate that amount of risk, where you can bring out the product quickly, and then there is also a scope for pivoting immediately. So it's very important to understand where the startups want to build, and then where as an investor you want to put your money. Today, if you ask me if I have to put a money in deep tech, so it doesn't match my fund philosophy also. Sure. I'm a fund. I need to return my money to my investors in next 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. So that doesn't fit me. Like, I mean, deep foundational sciences which require 5 to 6 years in product development, and commercialization might take another 5, 6 years. So that doesn't fit our fund philosophy or the fund policy. So that is where we also look at technologies where there is some amount of work happen, and it's the same. Like, I mean, and it's the value of death mostly happens at the product level. So we try and see that risk is eliminated, and we take the risk of taking it to the market.
Sure. So I think, look, I'm walking away so far energized by the fact that it is no different than other areas of investment. The funding winter was there, it was for everyone. So when we saw the 30% decline in investment in climate tech, it was also similar in other areas as well. The return expectations are no different. And the way you look at and profile these things are no different either. I just wanted to check if there are other measures of success that you look at as you look at climate tech investments beyond the returns as well. I know that you track how much carbon abatement are you able to deliver, 1% reduction in carbon emissions of the country. Are you discovering new metrics to do this? And maybe just spend 1-2 minutes to say, how would those metrics move next time when we meet in a year's time at the next India Energy Week?
So yeah, definitely as a mission we have kept ourselves that we'll reduce at least 1 million tons of carbon in the next few years, and then eventually we would want to go up also. So again, I would say this is very similar to other sector investments.
Sure.
This is the same. Again, the pure metric, we are an investor, we have to make money out there, and returns is actually our one metric or a one North Star, I would say, what we track. And again, as an investor, we have to choose like what are the pockets in which we can maximize and we can play is what we look at. So apart from that, I think it would be it's also end of the day definitely our investors, many of our investors would love to see there's some amount of carbon reduction happening because of those technologies, but eventually they will also look at what is the return. So we have taken a lot of commercial capital, not an impact capital.
Sure. Same question for you, Shailesh.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. So as an investor, when we invest, we see what impact it is creating, whether it is aligned towards our climate goal or not. But when the investment is done, we just give a North Star metrics of growth. Because I think if you give two metrics, it becomes like a houseboat. I use that example a lot. And a houseboat is neither a great house, neither a great boat. Right?
Sure.
So it confuses founders. So the point is for founder, the only thing is revenue. And if they maximize revenue, like say in Tesla, we need not monitor, right? What is the impact they're creating. So I think that way we choose the companies where the revenue translates into impact, and then the founder has only one metric, which is revenue growth.
Great. Arpit, any different views or same?
Very similar. You can measure impact. However, impact is not the goal to seek.
Great. Mike, any parting thoughts from you on measures that one needs to look at from a climate tech investment beyond just financial returns?
Well, Guyana is a sinkhole. We hold about 90 gigatons of greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
So we are producing oil and gas, but we have positive, we don't need to buy carbon credits. We have a lot. So we are trading now.
Carbon sink, yeah.
Yeah,
we have a
we are
natural
getting
carbon sink,
the
yes.
best of both worlds. We're not going to be importing tomatoes and cucumbers and those things because we have a lot of land. We want to take this oil, this gas, and apply it towards monetizing it, downstream industry, urea, fertilizer. We want to export a lot of our excess power to northern Brazil, where they have a lot of power outages. So we will turn our bauxite into alumina ingots, send that by rail into Manaus, bring out exports from northern Brazil. Guyana is building a deep water harbor. So we are going to be a bit like Singapore, but long term, we're not going to build a Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. We like to have a balance because we're part of the Amazon. We are eternally conscious of our commitment to Kyoto. We are committed towards, being the lungs of the world. We know oil and gas is not going to last forever. So we don't want to mess up the place and then we have to live with hell. So we are going to have a balanced approach. Nobody in Guyana wants to live in a concrete jungle when we were in the Amazon. How do I describe the Guyana of the future? It's the beauty and serenity of Kerala with the dignified sophistication of Abu Dhabi.
Yep. Well, thank you.
So
and you maintain that consistently. We look forward to that.
And we have a climate, we have an energy mix. We're looking at solar in a big way. We want to do hydrogen, want to do, we are great for solar. We're just above the equator. Wind along the coast near Venezuela for sure. So we are not placing all.
So you're leapfrogging on all energy dimensions.
Yes,
so
and we want to become
heartening to note, yes.
Not only, we want to be a leader, we want to be an incubator, we want to be a test bed. Guyana wants to be, to the whole climate change discussion, what Bangalore has become to ICT.
Fantastic.
And I think we're uniquely positioned,
You are.
but we can't do it alone. So we're going to work with Mother India, so there is a push and pull effect. And I like to say, it's time tequila meet masala.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think we had great insights from all of you. We understood that the next unicorn is not very far away. Carbon green is one thing to watch out for. I think we have had 100 unicorns in the climate tech space. The next one is coming from India. The return expectations no different. The financial metrics no different. The policy system very enabling. So I think this is a dialogue that we've started now. We didn't have this dialogue last time in the India Energy Week. We look forward to progressing on this and seeing how these investments come through to create the next quick commerce or the next e-commerce in this space as well. Thank you everyone. Thank you to the audience as well.